welcome back, and if you're new, hello. And today we're going to be making my shoes. No, I'm just joking. We're going to be making a ice cream sandwich. We're going to actually make a semifreddo rather than ice cream. Unless you have an ice cream machine, then go ahead. But first, we're going to start by making a custard. So into a pan or a sauce pot, you're going to add in 2 cups of milk, a half cup of sugar, and then a 1/4 cup of cornstarch, half of it into the milk, and then half of it we're going to leave in a bowl. And that pot is going to go onto the stove, and it's going to gently warm until everything is dissolved. And into the bowl of where your cornstarch is, we're going to add in our eggs. So this is 4 egg yolks, and we're going to kind of mix this all together. And we're going to kind of keep this separated from the milk till the milk is warm and ready. And in the meantime, while the milk is getting nice and warm, we are going to start our vanilla. So I'm just going to use a whole vanilla bean. If you have extract, that's totally okay. But if you have your vanilla bean, you're going to slice it down the center and then drag your knife through that slice. And what you're going to pull out are all the beans of the vanilla. And this is what we're going to use for the actual semifreddo. And along with our vanilla bean, which we're going to use after our custards come off the stove, we're going to need 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. And we're going to leave this with the vanilla beans just separate until everything is ready. And we're going to fold this in at the very end. So once your milk and sugar come to a simmer, we're going to add little by little of this milk into the egg and cornstarch slurry. You only need about a 1/4 cup into there, and this is just going to temper those eggs so that they don't scramble when you add them back into the milk. So slowly add them in and stir constantly just to get all of that milk incorporated and the temperature up of those eggs. And then we're going to take that mixture and then add it back into the milk while whisking constantly. And we're going to keep whisking this till it thickens, and it should happen relatively quick. It only takes about 1 minute. So add it in and then whisk, and this is going to keep it from burning on the bottom of the pot. You're going to keep it moving because it will burn, and if you go over on this custard, it will scramble, and you'll have scrambled eggs that are a little sweet, and it's not very delicious. So here you can see that they have thickened, and once you reach this consistency, you're going to take it off the burner and into a cool bowl. We're going to add it in, and we're going to add in our vanilla beans and our butter, and we're going to mix this till it's incorporated. And we're going to struggle, take that butter out, add it in. And we're going to mix this till it's all incorporated. And there's no chunks of butter, and the vanilla is all the way throughout the custard. And we're going to let this cool. So we're going to need this cold for the next step, which is adding in whipped cream. So if you add this warm to whipped cream, it's going to separate, and it's going to be an absolute disaster. So whisk it together and then into the fridge covered. And you're going to make sure that plastic wrap is touching the custard when it's in the fridge, so that way it doesn't form a skin. Alright, so while that custard cools in the fridge, we're going to make whipped cream. So just heavy cream, and we're going to whip this. If you like your ice creams sweet, you can go ahead and add a little bit of sugar right now. And we're just going to whip this till we get stiff peaks. Shouldn't take too long. If you want to do this by hand, go for it. You'll have a nice strong forearm by the end of it. But go ahead and leave it in the machine. It should only take about 5 minutes on high. And once you get those stiff peaks, as you can see right here, you're going to be in great shape, and we're going to stop at this point. So you can go ahead and leave this at room temperature in the fridge, depending on when you want to finish making your semifreddo. And here you can see the consistency you're looking for. And in the meantime, while that custard's still cooling, we're going to make our blueberry. So this can be for a swirl in the semifreddo. To 1/2 cup of blueberries, to 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, and a little bit of water. We're going to let that cover simmer, and it's going to slowly break apart, and what you're going to be left with is a blueberry syrup, and we're just going to strain this off. If you want it chunky, go ahead and leave those blueberries in. And normally you're going to be left with a little bit of this syrup, unless you're going to do a completely blueberry semifreddo. And it's great for toast or granola, so you can go ahead and hold on to this, and it lasts forever since there's so much sugar already in it. So, all right, so our custard has been cooling. It's nice and cold. And now we're gonna slowly fold in that whipped cream to our custard. So add a little bit of whipped cream to your bowl of custard, and we're just gonna slowly fold that in. And we're gonna repeat this till we're all done. There's no more whipped cream left. Take your time. If you do this too fast, you're gonna knock the air out of your whipped cream and you're gonna be left with a very dense semifreddo. What you want is that air so it's creamy and soft and delicious. So just take your time, slowly fold it in and over till it's all incorporated. Take your time, don't rush this. If your custard is hot at this point, what's gonna happen is it's gonna collapse. You're gonna knock all that air out of the whipped cream, and you might have the chance of it also splitting due to the heat. All right, so once you've added all of your whipped cream, we're going to make our swirl. So slowly add in just a drizzle of your blueberry syrup. I only added about maybe a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons worth of blueberry. If you want it far more blueberry, go ahead and add all of it. And here you can see the final product, what it looks like. We're just gonna put this into the freezer until it's frozen. And in the meantime, while that's freezing, we're gonna make our cookies. And the first step is to cream the butter and sugar for our cookies. So this is a 1/2 cup of unsalted room temperature butter and 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar. And this is gonna go onto your stand mixer or your KitchenAid, and we're going to blend this till it's all incorporated and looks a lot like cream and butter. So you're gonna let this on high. It should only take 2 to 3 minutes. You're gonna wanna scrape down those sides so that it's always mixing. As you can see here, it kind of sticks to the sides. So go ahead and scrape down the bowl as many times as you need to. Just kind of keep your eye on it. And once this is all incorporated, as you can see here, we're gonna add in 1 large egg. And we're gonna mix that again till that's incorporated. And then here's where my recipe may vary from something you've made in the past, is I'm gonna add in about a 1/4 cup of honey, and this is gonna make a chewy cookie. I really like it. I also like the flavor of the honey. If you don't wanna add honey, what I recommend is just doing a 1/2 cup of brown sugar and a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. I also added in about a tablespoon of bourbon just for that vanilla flavor and a little bit of kick. So once everything's incorporated and nice and smooth, now we can add in our dry ingredients. So you're gonna add in 1.5 cups of AP flour, and you're gonna wanna do this slowly. So go ahead and stop your mixer, drop it down, and add in your flour, and then kind of just pulse it so that you don't have flour all over the place. Believe me, I've done it before, and it's a mess to clean up. So go ahead and add that in. In there is a mix of salt, so a teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and that's just to make sure everything works out as kind of a safety. So once that's all come together, you're gonna add in your chocolate chips, so 1 cup of chocolate chips. We're gonna slowly add those in so that they can mix equally. And from there, that's it. You don't wanna overmix here. This is kind of a quick process, so you don't develop too much gluten. So just once everything's mixed in, you can go ahead and cut it off. All right, what I do recommend though, before doing this part, is letting your dough cool a little bit so it's easier to work with and not as sticky. But here we're doing about 1/4 cup size pieces of dough, so using a cup measurement or an ice cream scoop so that everything's equal. We're gonna shape these into balls and onto a lined baking sheet they're gonna go. These are gonna go into a 350-degree oven for about 12 to 15 minutes. Just keep an eye on them so they don't burn. Here you can see I'm struggling because I didn't let them cool enough and they're a little sticky. So I do recommend letting these cool off. Let that butter harden a little bit and it makes it a lot easier to work with. And you're gonna wanna leave some separation between these because they will expand and you'll have a cookie blob creation if you're not careful. And if you want the perfect ice cream or semifreddo in the center of your cookies, you can do this. So this is mold with the semifreddo before it's fully frozen. I just add that semifreddo into that mold and we're just gonna press it down to get rid of all the air bubbles so that it's a solid piece of semifreddo. You can totally just keep it in that quart container, is what I found out was it comes out as a perfect cylinder. And you just kind of warm up the sides with some hot water and it will just kind of fall out and you can cut that cylinder into your desired disc size. This just is another way of doing it. It's a little more labor intensive and you kind of have to take your time because as that freezes, you can't really do anything till it's frozen and you can remove it from the mold. So totally up to you. What I recommend is just leave it in the quart container, freeze it, and then you can just kind of pop it out and cut in the discs you want. So once your cookies are done out of the oven, we're going to let them cool. I like to put them onto a wire rack. Don't do this right after they come out of the oven because they'll be kind of floppy and they'll fall apart. So just let them cool a little bit on the sheet tray before moving them to a wire rack. We'll let these cool before doing anything with them because they will melt the ice cream if not. So once your ice cream is frozen and your cookies are cool, we're going to put that SEMIFREDDO right on top of the ice cream. Here you can see the SEMIFREDDO is not fully frozen. So we're just going to take this right off, put it onto the cookie, and then this is going to go right back into the freezer until it's completely frozen through. And this is the next day, so it's been completely frozen. Absolutely delicious. You can see the blueberry swirls in it. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like. It really helps the channel, and go ahead and subscribe. And we'll see you all next week.